I'm very pleased to have our fourth guest, who's actually made a number of appearances on At the Post Live, and also he is one of two members of his high school class that will be joining us in At the Post Live, and the other member is Larry Colmus, who's very, very jealous that you're beating him to punch. Craig Milkowski from Timeform US and the Daily Racing Form. Craig, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks. That's very true about Larry. The first thing he said to me, I haven't seen him in like 3 or 4 years, was, "How the hell did you get on the show before me?" So,
did you tell Larry it's because I like you more than you like him?
Absolutely. I
Good.
mean, he doesn't know about our late night phone calls.
He doesn't know. He doesn't realize how close you and I are, and if he did, he'd be even more jealous.
Right. Absolutely.
Don't worry, Larry Colmus, our track announcer, will be on next week on the show. If I didn't put him on next week, I'd never have heard the end of it. He'd probably wear those ridiculous pants or something every day at the track.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Larry always looks like he's ready to go to a wedding.
So you make a lot of. Craig lives in Oklahoma City. How are you dealing with the Russell Westbrook trade, by the way? Talk right into the mic. Get into that mic.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I love Russell Westbrook as a basketball player, but the team wasn't going anywhere, so it's time to move on. They gotten a little stale watching the last couple years, so looking forward to a rebuild, and we'll see what happens.
All right. You are a season ticket holder. So Craig makes the figures for Timeform US, and if you're not familiar with them, they're very interesting because unlike buyer speed figures or other figures, they're pace-based numbers.
Yeah, they're final time mostly, but we do adjust them somewhat from pace. We do all the tracks around the country, just like the buyer speed figures. I saw David Aragones here, the morning line maker for NYRA. He also works for Timeform US. And I also have to deal with David writing to me about asking, what did you do? Where'd you come up with this crazy figure? But for the most part, he's usually pretty good with them. And it's
He's pretty
interesting.
smart, David.
Oh, David's a very smart guy. I generally listen to him. Every once in a while I put up a fight, but I usually give in.
The older we get, the more we listen to people that are younger. Their brains are just working better than ours.
That is absolutely true.
So last weekend, an unusual situation in Saratoga with the Amsterdam winner, whose name is now Chancelot, and Imperial Hint in the Vanderbilt. Both of them ran tremendous performances. How would you rank those two figures, looking at your figures? Andy Beyer gave a slightly higher figure to Chancelot. I think you thought Imperial Hint may have run the better race of the two?
Yeah, they're slightly. I mean, it's splitting hairs, to be honest. I think the Sunday was a little bit tougher day to make figures, but they were both outstanding performances. Obviously, you don't need speed figures to see that.
Right.
But when I look back through my database and looked at the figures I had given to some sprint races, they were about as fast as you're going to see. Army Mule, who was a kind of a flash in the pan for Todd Pletcher, ran a really fast race last year.
Carter,
was 1 point faster, but these were as fast as you were going to get from us. It was a 136, I believe, for Imperial Hint, a 133 for Chancelot. And for those not familiar with us, we're on the same scale as the Timeform overseas figures. So, I mean, those are pretty big numbers. They're not quite in Franco range, but they're up there. They're really good horses.
And I mean, I feel like Arrogate, you may have once given a 140 or something, 141. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Arrogate topped out at 139. Gunrunner actually hit the 140 mark 2 or 3 times. He's been the fastest horse on our numbers, not necessarily on final time, but on the adjusted for the pace and the final time, he was something.
We don't have a lot more time, but you got into making figures when you were in the Army. Was that some of it? You were stationed in Belgium. Is that some part of it?
Now we're going to fight. I was in the Air Force.
Sorry.
I'm a retired Air Force guy, not Army guy.
I apologize. I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's only the fourth dumbest thing I've said today.
I started making figures long before that, but I actually wrote some software to do it, to help me automate things and be able to cover lots of tracks. And I did that while I was in Belgium. And it just started out as a hobby, and I actually fell into War Emblem, really. I kind of made some big figures for him before the Illinois
You were
Derby.
smart enough to believe them, unlike Beyer, who didn't believe.
Right. I believed them. I actually bet on them, which is not always the case for me. I don't always bet the highest figure, and sometimes I regret it, sometimes not. But he kind of turned things around, and it was just a hobby, and people started asking me about it, and here we are, 10 or 15 years later, and I was working for DRF, which was something I never could have imagined.
And appearing on the show before Larry Colmus. Craig Milkowski, Thank you so much for joining us on At the Post.